Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Drafts at Dawn, our Sunday preview episode. Good morning, Danny. How
Good
are
morning.
you? As always, let's go around the horn here. Before we get started on the NFL preview, let's go around and see what everybody's drinking. Danny, what do you got this morning?
Yeah, I got the good old New Glarus Spotted Cow from Wisconsin. I only get in Wisconsin, so whenever we get up there, we always bring back a case for ourselves. So always a good light beer.
Absolutely. I've got a Milo's lemonade and whiskey this morning, so
Okay, okay.
pretty good. Solid 7.5. So that could be down to user error on the mix, but we'll see. All right, we had a great slate last night. Before we touch base on kind of the NFL preview, uh, huge news out of college football. We had two really good games going on last night. Texas, Alabama, and then Miami versus Texas A&M ended up being a great game as well. So Danny, I wanted to get your reaction on both those games and who you think is more back, the U or Texas?
I would probably say Texas, and not just because everyone always calls Texas back whenever they win a game, but Miami they really kind of struggled, and this is kind of actually their first big win in a number of years. Texas for the past few years has gotten some decent wins, but they just have not been able to string together a whole season along. And this roster and the schedule that they have in front of them looks more college football playoff ready than Miami does. I just have to see more from Miami to really believe that they are quote unquote back.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I think the difference there is going to be Quentin Ewers for Texas. I mean, his deep ball accuracy last night, the way Texas stayed aggressive, and we talked about it before the game while we were actually together last night, and that Texas could not go in there and settle for field goals all night, play timid, just punt the ball away, try and play field possession or field position. They had to go in there. They had to be aggressive, and take the win. I think at the end of the game, I think Sark said Alabama was 52-1 in their last 53 games at home. So a really tough place to win, but I think Texas showed that they can be back.
100% agree.
All right, we got a big slate. Week one NFL, really, really exciting. A lot of unknowns. So, as always, with drafts at dawn, Danny and I will go through the games, see what the lines are, see what the spreads are, and just give our thoughts and predictions on the NFL day upcoming. Let's start off with game number one, going over to Carolina versus the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta's getting -3.5 right now. Danny, thoughts on this game? What do you think about that spread as well?
I think it's pretty much right where it's at. Falcons are at home, and usually in the NFL, you kind of get 3 points for just being at home, and it's 3.5, so it's pretty much even game. It's like a toss-up game, pretty equal teams. It's just both teams are both rebuilding. Carolina, I hope they lose just as a Bears fan, just because that means we get a better draft pick out of it after the DJ Moore trade. So I really hope the Falcons win. I would probably stay away from the betting line though myself.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point with the Bears getting a better draft pick, the worse the Carolina Panthers are. I think Bryce Young's going to be very good at Alabama. He was an extremely clutch player. The Atlanta Falcons bring in Bijan Robinson, who was just an insane running back at Texas. The production, the yards after contact, the power. He's going to be an incredible player in the league as well. Um, but I think I agree. This one's really too much of an unknown. Week one is always a toss up in the NFL. It's probably the most any given Sunday that you're going to have all year. So I think I agree. But I'd like to see I would probably go with the Panthers to win this game. Moving on to the next game, we do have a couple hometown favorites. Corey's not joining us today, but Cleveland being his team, and we've been bandwagoning Cincinnati
Oh
ever
yeah.
since the
Oh
arrival
yeah.
of Joey B. Bengals are getting 1.5. How do you feel about this game? What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, for as much success that the Bengals have had the past couple of years, they really have not done too great against the Browns. Browns at home, divisional, opponent. I really believe in Joe Burrow. I can never bet against him, but it's probably a line I would stay away from betting, but I would pick the Bengals to win. Even though I guess it's pretty much one, so it's pretty much money line is the spread, but I'm not putting my money on it. But if I had to guess, I'm guessing I'm going for a Bengals win.
Yeah, I'm staying away from this game as well, and I think that'll probably be the theme throughout the lineup today. But the Bengals have historically started off very slow, so I'm a little bit worried for the slow start of the Bengals and also Joe Burrow coming off, a small injury during the preseason and training camp. So, I'm rooting for the Bengals, but I would not be surprised at all if Cleveland um, pulls it out, actually. So that's something to look forward to. And then, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, the Bengals lost to the Bears early on in the season, and I think that's what cost them home
Yeah,
field
yeah.
advantage. So they really need to be sharp at the beginning of the season.
Hmm.
All right, let's move on to the next game. We got another divisional game. Jacksonville versus the Indianapolis Colts. Jacksonville's getting 3.5 points here. Thoughts on this game?
Anthony Richardson, his first start, I wasn't very impressed with his college performance at Florida. You could tell had all the tools there, but he just could not put it all together at Florida. And I think that's why Indianapolis drafted him was just because of what he could be, his upside would be. But that's going to be a few years away. I think he's a developmental project. We already know Trevor Lawrence is pretty much a finished product, or at least his floor is so much higher than Anthony Richardson is right now. The same with the Jaguars in general. I'm going to take the Jaguars and the points.
Yeah, I think I like the Jaguars here as well. A lot of unknowns. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor not going to go for the Colts. Um, I think they've got a lot of work to do. I think it's good for Anthony Richardson to get the play time. I think that's how you probably learn the fastest. I think he's going to have a rough go against the Jaguars as well. So I'm going to go with the Jaguars here as well. Moving on over to Tampa and Minnesota, Baker Mayfield now on his, third or fourth team with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I was
Yeah.
kind of surprised that they did not go
Mhm.
with Kyle Trask. Uh, I think he gives you an element of surprise, right? There's no tape on him, as well as I think you need to find out what you have. I think if 4 games in the season wasn't going your way, you could put Baker in that division. I think you would still be in the hunt. So I was a little surprised by that. Um, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, I think they've showed you every year that they're going to be kind of knocking on that door, wild card. But with Aaron Rodgers out of the division, um, and the Lions looking pretty good as well, and the Bears could be competitive. I think Minnesota needs to win this game, and I think they ultimately do. I really don't trust Baker. I think we've had a large enough sample size to know what we've got here. But -4.5 to Minnesota, it's quite a few points. Um, Again, week one, I'd probably stay away from this one.
I would actually probably hit the Vikings hard for me. Vikings in the points. And with regards to the Kyle Trask, it's another Florida product that really did not look good while he was at Florida. Just too much unknown there. I think that's why they went with the known at Baker Mayfield. Not saying he's going to be the best option long term, but I think that's probably what their thought process was. The Vikings, like you were saying, they're just always knocking on the door for that playoff push, whether it's wild card or they're just pushing the Packers for the divisional lead. And like you mentioned, the Bengals coughing up early against the Bears a couple years ago. Those early losses could really haunt you. And with upswing Bears, we hope, and then definitely the upswing Lions, you really, if you're the Vikings, you really need to win some of these non-divisional early games. And I think this is the first non-divisional game that we've talked about. So I'm gonna take the Vikings and the points here.
Yeah, I think we both agree. Game one's not the end of the world, but I think um, they're really, even with the extra game now in the season, these games are still extremely important, and you cannot drop games that you shouldn't be dropping as it pertains to that home field advantage. Looking at the next game on the schedule, the Tennessee Titans versus the New Orleans Saints. Looks like New Orleans is getting 2.5 points, so less than a field goal here. It's a very intriguing spread there. Danny, I'll throw it back over to you. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think we're seeing the downswing of Tennessee. I'm gonna take the Saints money line actually. I just really I like Mike Vrabel as a coach at Tennessee, but I just don't I think the turnover at quarterback with Will Levis going there again, he was fine in college, but he's not a generational kid that can make a difference in the NFL at this point just yet. We'll see in a few years how that changes. The Tennessee Titans probably have a better roster overall, but I just think the Saints have a different kind of momentum going into this season than the Titans do, and I feel like the Titans are just kind of grasping onto their former glory that was a few years ago when they were just a really stout team, and I feel like the talent has just been slowly chipped away there.
Yeah, I think they should have been more aggressive in the quarterback market this year. Try and get a Jimmy Garoppolo, somebody like that, or make a trade. Um, because they were able to bring in DeAndre Hopkins, but um, you got to have somebody who can get him the ball on time and on target. So I like the Saints in this one as well. I think Derek Carr um, is an upgrade, and I think that
He's a high floor quarterback. He really is. More so than Will Levis, I think.
yeah, and I think that again he can have your team in contention, and especially in that division. If they rely on the run game and that good defense down in New Orleans, I think that they could be competitive come the end of the season and be looking at a wild card potentially.
100%.
Next game, yeah,
I
next
totally
game
agree.
up on the docket, we got a really interesting game. I think we've got San Francisco versus Pittsburgh. San Francisco's
Yeah.
getting 2 points right now. Um, Brock Purdy is just a huge, the sample size. I just don't know if it was enough last year. Um, but the San Francisco 49ers made a decision. That's what they're going with. Kenny Pickett as well, I think, is kind of an unknown. But I think Mike Tomlin's hands down one of the best coaches in the NFL. He's going to have that team ready to play. And uh, I could potentially see an upset here, but I'm not, again, not going to make any picks on this one. I just wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers came out and won this game.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm staying away from this game, but this is probably my favorite game so far of the 12 o'clock slate. 49ers, they're a Super Bowl team talent-wise, except the quarterback position, but like every other position on that roster is just they're just such a sound team. They really are. It's the Bears needed a monsoon last year to beat them at home in that game one, and they needed Trey Lance to play like Trey Lance. Speaking of which, he's now in the Cowboys. He got traded for a bag of Skittles to go to the Cowboys.
Yeah,
So makes you
not even a king size, just a
now you
fun
know what the
size.
49ers really think of him. Yeah, exactly. And Mike Tomlin have so much respect for him as a coach and what he's done in his tenure there with the Steelers. I know a couple Steelers fans are kind of upset with overall, but like you can't deny the success, at the very least regular season success that he's had with them, not a losing season that he's had with the Steelers. And we'll see what Kenny Pickett does for them in the long term. But I'm looking forward to this game, but I'm going to stay away from betting it.
Yeah, this next game, I was pretty surprised by the line actually. You've got the Washington Commanders and the Arizona Cardinals, with Washington getting 7 points. Sam Howell did look good in the preseason, and I've been actually on the Sam Howell train since he was at UNC. Um, his last year he was at UNC kind of had a down year, which kind of had him slide in the draft. But he has looked
Hmm.
well. He has played well, and I think we're going to find out finally, um, what kind of impact Eric Bieniemy had on that Chiefs offense. So I think it was a great move from him to go somewhere where he could probably grab a little bit more of the credit when they do have success. So this one's a very intriguing matchup, but I do like Washington in this game.
You think that would you take the points?
Probably not. I think seven's quite a bit, but again,
Yeah.
um, sticking with my theme, there's just, to me at least, there's no smart money in week one. I think you need some sort of data, but it seems like a lot to me.
Yeah, for such a league of parity, you just go off of last year's storylines, and I know you can kind of like track player movement, but it's so hard in the NFL, especially to try to predict, at the very least, spreads in week one, just because any given week, the Cardinals could beat the Bengals for all we know. It really just depends. I mean, they're gonna like no team is gonna go defeated the entire year. I mean, I know there was the Lions like a decade ago, but for the most part, no team is gonna go winless throughout a season. So you just never know. Um, but I would probably take, man, 7 points is just too much for a team I don't trust. I mean, I would guess the Commanders would win, but I'm staying away from the points.
Yeah, the next game we have here on the schedule, you've got the Houston Texans and the Baltimore Ravens, giving Baltimore 9.5 points, really just, smacking the Houston Texans in the face with that spread. Uh, that's going to be an intriguing one. I think CJ Stroud is an interesting prospect. Um, I think that D'Amico Ryans was a great hire for the Houston Texans, but I think it's too early for CJ Stroud to overcome the lack of talent on that team. I do love that they were so aggressive in the draft and they jumped straight back to number three to grab Will Anderson. Um, Two cornerstone players in the same draft is a great start. But I think Lamar is also going to be hungry to show people that he deserved his contract. Um, and
Yeah.
he may decide to hang 45 on these guys, 45-7 score line. We shall see. But I think he's going to be hungry to show everybody that he's back.
Yeah, this line I trust a lot more than the Commanders and Arizona line. I don't trust. I like the coaching staff at Washington, but I just don't trust the team yet. I know they went 8-1. I think they threw a tie in there to go even on the season. But the Ravens they're just a more proven squad, and we kind of know what more to expect from them. And we definitely know the Texans are not competing for anything of significance this year. So I think of all the big spreads that we see week one, this would be the one that I would take.
Yeah, definitely agree that we can probably not count on the Texans to be very competitive this year. Let's go to the marquee matchup of the week. We've got the Green Bay Packers visiting the Chicago Bears right now. Right now, Chicago's getting 1 point at home as Danny
Oh,
supports his and our Chicago Bears. There's just so much optimism around this season with Aaron Rodgers finally out of the division. I think the Lions may have, stamped their claim at, the best team in the division with that win against the Chiefs. But I think for Bears fans, the season is starting on a high here. If we can get a win and get rolling, um, we could easily see ourselves competing for the division win. Uh, Danny, I'll throw it over to you for your thoughts on this game and just your excitement around this season.
I'm very excited. Just like the beginning of every football season, there's just an air of hope that you're just breathing in. And I don't want to put too much stock into one game, but man, week one against your probably the most rivals of rivals that you're going up against, probably the best rival, or maybe not best rival, but like probably the most historic rivalry in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers is gone. You have a chance to take a step forward in the division and really just kind of send the Packers to the back of the bus here. I really am hoping the Bears just make a significant statement in this week one because if they don't, man, there was already some questions last year going in with the offense, or sorry, this year with Justin Fields, and can he take a step forward with the offense? And I know there's defensive questions, but man, you're really hoping this year Justin Fields can really declare himself as your starter for the next decade or so. And I don't want to say it starts today, but I don't want to put too much stock and put too much pressure on them. It's now or never, but man, this would be a really good win for them if they could pull it out today. And especially if Justin looks good.
Yeah, absolutely. And if he doesn't, the Bears need to immediately start tanking for Caleb Williams. That's just it. If we go 0-1,
Yeah.
pack it up. 2024, here we come.
Well, that's the thing, Zane, is that there is so much quarterback talent in this year's draft that, like, let's say you don't get Caleb. I mean, I mean, we saw over the first couple of weeks, even 2.5, I guess 3 weeks, I guess if you include week zero for college football. Man, there's a lot of good quarterbacks out there that are going to be draft eligible after this year, and man, like the point of making that DJ Moore trade and getting their number one pick too and expecting them to be bad is that you were going to use it probably in preparation just in case Justin wasn't good, that you could go get another quarterback in the top three. And I know it's Justin's only third year and he has like, well, I guess technically 2 more years on his contract, but man, it's his make or break year.
Yeah, absolutely. The mock drafts are going to be insane for this upcoming draft. It's going to be a great
Yeah.
time to be in picking in the top three. That's for sure.
Oh
The
yeah.
next game we've got here, Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos. This one is actually a very interesting game to me, and I think the Broncos may be on upset alert. I really like the addition of Sean Payton, but the Broncos receiving core is just depleted. Russell Wilson, everybody wants to believe can get back to form. I think we need to see it. And the Vegas Raiders, I think, are going to be an improved team this year. So this actually Broncos, I think, are on upset alert. What are your thoughts here?
Dude, the Raiders just seem like such a toxic organization right now. No player in recent memory has left the Raiders that I can think about and been like, oh yeah, that was a good culture to play in. I just, but like with Sean Payton kind of going after other coaches, it's really weird and it's out of his care. Like he doesn't need to do that kind of thing. And Russell Wilson, I just don't believe in him. Maybe it was the coaching staff last year, but he just did not look himself last year whatsoever. I don't trust either of these two teams. In fact, I would probably let me switch off the spread here. Let me go for the under. I don't know, let me check the under, but that's probably what I would go for, honestly. I don't even know what the
Yeah,
over under is, but I would go for the under. That's just how little I just respect these two teams.
over under here on this game, Danny, is 43 points.
Yeah, I'll hammer that.
Yeah, definitely one to watch. We've got a couple more great games at the 3 o'clock slot. Philadelphia Eagles versus the New England Patriots. I think with Philly's going to be great. I think more questions are going to be answered for New England in this game. Even if they take a loss, they've clearly gone with Mac Jones. With cutting um, Billy Zappi and then signing him back to the practice squad. They've put all
Yeah.
their cards to the center, all their chips in the center with Mac Jones. So I think a lot of questions are going to be answered for New England in this game, regardless of win or loss. So that's why I think this is a great game to watch. Keep your eye on throughout the day.
And more big picture here, when you think of like, man, really, the Eagles only 3.5 for like a Patriot squad. I know Bill Belichick usually has a respectable squad, but they've just been slowly declining since the first year since Brady left when they made the playoffs. And they've just been a slow decline ever since. And you might be surprised by the Eagles and how little points they're getting, but I know it's on the road, but in general, teams that lose the Super Bowl the next year, they really underperform a lot of the time. And I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, if your team loses the Super Bowl, usually you're not living up to the same expectations you were the year before, unless you're the Cincinnati Bengals because Joe Burrow is amazing. But overall, it's just I would honestly take the Eagles under on the win loss this year. I'm actually going to look that up right now to see what their win loss record is for the upcoming season because it's something that's kind of like a typical trend in the NFL over the past 20 years.
Yeah, while you're looking that up, I tend to agree, and the Super Bowl hangover can actually happen for that losing team as well. And a lot of times, you may just catch lightning in a bottle for those Super Bowl teams that end up, taking a loss and just running into a juggernaut or a buzzsaw in the championship game. You just might you got the Giants on their two Super Bowl runs, every playoff run, and it has to be said, as much as I was not an Eli Manning fan, he was so clutch on those playoff runs, and then the next years just weren't competitive. It's just sometimes you catch that lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I don't know. So, but and the Eagles do have like a great roster. It's really everything's there for them to come back and really, be a force in the NFL for the next few years. It's up to them if they take that step because they have all the talent that's there or that they need to make a Super Bowl run. So it's really just up to Jalen Hurts and Sirianni to take that step forward.
Absolutely agree. Let's keep it rolling here. Miami versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are getting 3 points in this game. I think this is, again, another great matchup. A lot of questions are going to be answered. Justin Herbert got paid. Tua's looking to get paid if he has a great year. Um, I don't know if the Miami Dolphins necessarily have to re-sign him. Even if they win a Super Bowl, then you probably have to re-sign him, right? Get him a long-term deal. Um, but um, the Dolphins look like a great team this year, and so do the Chargers. The AFC is just loaded. Every division you look at
It is.
is going to be so competitive, except for the AFC South. But man, this is just a game that, as a football fan, I'm excited to watch. I want to see Justin Herbert do well. I I just kind of like the Chargers just as a football fan. So we'll see. And I do think the addition of Kellen Moore is huge, as we discussed earlier in the week. I think we're going to see an electric
And Vic
offense there in
Fangio.
Los Angeles. Yep. This team, I think, um, watch out for the Chargers. They're not a dark horse team by any stretch, but being in the same division as the Chiefs, they need to win these games that are winnable.
Yeah.
Because once you get into the division, they may lose. one or two or three division games that maybe they could have won. So they need to take these out of division games every time.
Yeah, I agree. My big thing too on this game and season overall too is, man, the Dolphins just need Tua to stay healthy because that really kind of defines what they can do over the course of his season. Because he is a really talented guy, but man, the concussions that scares me so much. Seeing how badly he was affected by them and how quickly they just kept throwing him back in there last season. With the Chargers, yeah, I know the Chiefs dropped their first game, and that's kind of why you need to take advantage of that and just stay ahead of the pack. Because I know the Chiefs lost their first game. They're going to be fine. They're going to be back. They're going to be in the playoffs again, not even playoff hunt. So the Chargers really just have to just try to rack up as many wins as they can because even if they don't beat out the Chiefs, they're going to want that home field advantage in the wild card round so that because that's kind of eluded them the past couple years. And it's also kind of funny. I always just think of the Chargers in these 325 games, and I'm just thinking, man, like when I would wake up from a nap on a Sunday after not doing my homework, and then just like right before that 60 minute like commercial would like wake me up and then it would be like, oh, I guess it's about to we're late afternoon of the NFL or on a Sunday, and then I'm watching just or Philip Rivers drive down the field to try to get the Chargers a win only for him to throw a back-breaking pick as they try to go for a win. I mean, it was just like clockwork, just like 60 minutes was. He was just could never finish out drives for the Chargers at home. So just a little trip down memory lane there for me, but I I would probably take the Chargers at home, and I would take the over on this game.
Yeah, this one has some explosive offenses, so we could see a high scoring game. Three games left to discuss for week one. It's been really fun discussing these games with you, Danny, during our morning show drafts at dawn here on the Empty Bottle Sports. So let's wrap these three games up here. Los Angeles at Seattle, or Los Angeles versus Seattle, excuse me. Seattle is getting 4.5 points. Cooper Kupp is on the IR, so I think that kind of takes the wind out of the sails for the Los Angeles Rams. They've looked pretty lost after that last Super Bowl win, and I think Seattle's a team that really plays really disciplined football. So I think that Seattle will take this one. And I think we could see the Rams with a slow start once they get Cooper Kupp back, um, and him and Matthew Stafford are on the same page. I think we could see a late run from the Rams competing for the division, but this early in the season, I think I like Seattle in this game.
I'm taking Seattle as well, Zane. The Rams, they're over their salary cap is over bloated. They have a lot of players on or just just have the injury bug in general. And now we see Cooper Kupp going to the IR. Last year was a huge step backwards, and you were going to kind of hope this year they could kind of regroup a little bit. But I think Sean McVay, he might be looking for other places after this year if he can get out of his contract because Matthew Stafford just doesn't look that healthy. Last year we saw it. And I don't think the Seahawks were really expecting to look that good with Geno Smith last year. And I think they can see, oh, we can actually do something with him. He might not be our long-term starter. Like I talked about, there's a huge QB draft class this year, but uh, like in the short term, I think QB or Geno Smith could kind of get them where they need to be this year, and that's like looking at a wild card spot. But usually the Rams and Seahawks usually give a good game. Divisional opponents usually always give good games. I'm going to stay away from betting this game, but I would probably take the under just like I would with the oh gosh, what game was that? The Raiders and Broncos.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a big year for Geno as well with the upcoming QB draft class. I think he has a real chance if they win the division to secure a spot there long term in Seattle. Man, Cowboys versus the New York Giants. This is just a classic football matchup. And, it just hurts me to talk about these teams because I'm not a fan of either team.
I know.
Um, but I do think Brian Dable's a great coach. Danny Dimes is not the solution for New York. Um, this game is really a toss up for me. Dallas is getting 3.5 points on this game. I do predict that New York I would not be surprised if New York came away with a win here. I don't trust the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. I trust them enough to be roughly 500 this year, but I think New York, Dallas could very well be the last team in the division, depending on how well Sam Howell can play with Eric Bieniemy in Washington, depending on what kind of step Danny Dimes takes in New York. And I think the Eagles have that division wrapped up. So, interesting game, but I would not be surprised to see New York take the win here.
I'm going to hate watch this game tonight so hard. This division is always a parody, a division of parody, but for all the wrong reasons. And I just don't like any of these teams, but for some reason they're just always in prime time, and I hate every second of it because they could just be the most trash teams in the league this year, and they're still getting Monday night, Sunday night football prime time games that we have to watch it. Dak Prescott, maybe you guys have a chance of success if you can keep the turnovers down less than the touchdowns you throw, but I just don't trust Mike McCarthy or Dak Prescott for anything. Danny Dimes, I like the coaching staff in New York, but I don't think he's the answer either. I know he got a kind of an extension last year, but really long term, I don't think he's the answer for them, and I think they know that too, and they're kind of just treading water with him until someone else better comes along. I'm staying away from this game, and it's just gonna be a hate watch tonight.
Yes, sir. Final game of the week, a huge divisional game. Buffalo at New York. Aaron Rodgers' first game uh, as a New York Jet. I'm really excited to see this one. Jets have been on Hard Knocks, so there's been a lot of buzz around the New York Jets. Um, for me, I think the Jets take it. On our episode earlier in the week, I predicted Jets to win the division, and I'm sticking with that. I think the Jets pull this one out. I think the Bills have probably missed their window, although Josh Allen is a great quarterback. I think he's proven to be less clutch, uh, compared to some of the better quarterbacks,
Yeah,
Mahomes and Burrow
I would agree.
in that conference. So I like the New York Jets here.
I'm gonna stay away from the spread this game. I would like to take the over just because it would just be fun to see a shootout. But like you said, Zane, Josh Allen, great quarterback, definitely has outperformed his draft grades and his draft predictions. But really, the Buffalo Bills really got to take a step forward this year and make a deep playoff run because they, got knocked out by the Chiefs in absolute shootout of an AFC Championship game a couple of years ago. But then they were at home last year, and Joe Burrow and the buzzsaw Bengals came in and beat them. So you really, if you're the Bills, despite you, like, not only do you need home field advantage, it's like you just need your to be clutch. And Josh Allen was just not clutch last year, and the team wasn't overall either. So this team has to just figure out how to throw a complete season together, and it starts on Monday night.
Yeah, this is definitely one to watch, and week one is always so exciting for the NFL. I think every team, every fan base is coming in with optimism, and that soon may be crushed. But we're really looking forward to this season, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Tune in every Sunday morning. Danny and I will be doing drafts at dawn. There's just going to be more headlines, more storylines for us to discuss as the season progresses. So we're really excited about this morning show. Tune in next Sunday, and we'll see you guys then. Thanks so much.
Air down, baby.
All right, it's just gotta finish uploading. It's a good time to cut off because actually one of my AirPods ran out of juice, so um,
Oh, jeez.
so I'm down to one
That doesn't,
headphone
that's not
here.
surprising whatsoever.